You have seen a photograph of yourself that you do not remember. Maybe it is a first birthday, a cake, a paper hat, your own face smeared with frosting. Someone hands it to you and says, "That's you." And you believe them, even though you cannot recall a single second of that day, or that year, or anything at all from the first chapter of your own life. You were there for all of it. You just weren't keeping it. Think about how strange that actually is. You lived for hundreds of days. You learned to sit, to crawl, to stand, to walk. You learned the face of the person who fed you and the sound of the voice that calmed you. You felt hunger and comfort and fear and joy, probably more intensely than you will ever feel them again. And almost none of it survived. Where did it go? For most people, the earliest real memory lands somewhere around the age of 3. A flash, a room, a single feeling stuck to a single moment. Before that line, there is mostly nothing. A smooth, blank stretch where a whole human being was learning how to be alive, and somehow none of it was written down. Psychologists have a name for this blank stretch. They call it childhood amnesia. And the man who named it was sure he knew the reason. In 1899, Sigmund Freud noticed that his patients could almost never reach back past their 3rd or 4th year. He decided the memories were not lost at all. He believed they were buried, pushed down on purpose, hidden away because they were too charged and too raw for the conscious mind to hold. It was a tidy story. It survived for decades. It was also wrong. Because the truth is far stranger than repression. You did not hide those years from yourself. Your brain did something much more interesting than hiding. It built you by taking them apart. To understand how, you have to stop thinking of memory as a recording. It feels like a recording. It feels like somewhere inside your skull there is footage, and remembering is just pressing play on a tape that is sitting there, intact, waiting. But that is not what a memory is. A memory is not a file. It is a pattern, a specific web of connections between neurons that flickers back to life when something reaches in and pulls on it. The memory only exists as long as that web holds its shape. And in the brain of an infant, that web is being torn down and rebuilt faster than at any other moment in your entire life. This is where a researcher named Paul Frankland comes in. Frankland and his colleague Sheena Jocelyn study a small curled structure deep in the brain called the hippocampus. Think of it as the assembly point, the place where new experiences get stitched into lasting memory. In an adult, the hippocampus is relatively settled. In a baby, it is a construction site that never stops. It is flooded with brand new neurons, growing in at a rate you will never match again. A process called neurogenesis, and here is the part that should stop you cold. Every time a fresh neuron wires itself into that existing web of memory, it disturbs the connections that were already there. New neurons do not simply add more storage, they overwrite what was stored before. Frankland and Jocelyn tested this idea in mice. When they slowed down the flood of new neurons in young mice, the animals held on to memories they would normally have lost, and when they forced extra neurons to grow in older mice, those adults suddenly began to forget the way infants do. The pattern was unmistakable. The very growth that builds a young brain is the same growth that erases its earliest records. You did not lose your first year by accident. You lost it because your brain was too busy becoming a brain to keep it. So are those memories truly gone? Or just buried somewhere you can no longer reach? Hold on to that question because we are coming back to it, and the answer is not what you would expect. First, there is a second reason those years slipped away, and it has nothing to do with neurons at all. It has to do with words. Think about what one of your own memories actually is when you replay it. You can tell it. You can narrate it. First this happened, then that happened, and here is how I felt about it. Your memories are stories, and stories are built out of language. But the infant you were had no language. You met the entire world before you had a single word to pin any of it to. A psychologist named Harlene Hayne spent years studying exactly this gap. Working with very young children, she and her colleagues found something quietly remarkable. When a child experienced something at an age before they had the words for it, they could not later describe that experience using language they only picked up afterward. The memory stayed sealed in the form it was first stored in. If you had no words when you lived it, you have no words to pull it back now. The experience simply does not translate forward. Your earliest life was recorded in a language you no longer speak. This is also why the few early memories you think you do keep cannot always be trusted. That one vivid scene you swear you remember from when you were 2. There is a real chance you never actually remembered it at all. You were told the story. You saw the photograph. And your mind quietly built a memory to match the telling, then filed the whole thing away as your own. Researchers run into this constantly. People hold detailed, emotional, completely convincing memories of events that provably never happened to them. The line between remembering and reconstructing is far thinner than it feels from the inside. And in early childhood, almost everything you have falls on the reconstructed side of that line. And there is one more piece, and it might be the deepest one. To remember your life as your life, you need a you to attach it to. You need a sense of self, a continuous character standing at the center of the story, collecting the events as they happen. That self does not arrive at birth. It assembles slowly, somewhere around your 2nd year, around the first time you look in a mirror and understand that the face looking back is yours and not some other baby's. Before that self switches on, experiences are still happening. But there is no narrator at the center yet. No one home to gather those moments into a single thread and call it my life. So now look back at what really happened in those missing years. It was never one failure. It was 3 things happening at the same time. A hippocampus rebuilding itself so fast that it overwrote its own records. A mind storing the world as raw sensation before it had any words to encode it with. And a self that had not finished assembling, with no center to hang the story on. 3 separate forces, all pulling in the same direction, all of them erasing, and every single one of them necessary. This is the part almost everyone gets backwards. People think childhood amnesia is a flaw, a glitch, a leak in the system, a sad little hole in the human design. It is the exact opposite. It is the price of one of the most important things your brain will ever do. Here is what the researcher Patricia Bauer found when she tracked memory across early childhood. Young children can absolutely form detailed memories. Ask a 3-year-old what happened last month, and they will tell you, in vivid detail. So the problem was never that the memories fail to form. The problem is that they vanish at a stunning rate in the years that follow. A steep and accelerated forgetting that adults never experience. Bauer's work flipped the entire question on its head. The real mystery was never why infants fail to make memories. They make plenty. The mystery is why those memories are allowed to dissolve. And the answer is that they have to. A young brain is not trying to preserve a library of its own past. It is trying to learn the rules of the world as fast as it possibly can. It is extracting patterns, that this face means safety, that this sound means food is coming, that the floor will hold you and the open air will not. To build those patterns, it has to let the individual moments go. It keeps the lesson and throws away the example. The one specific afternoon you learned that the stove is hot does not survive, but the knowledge that hot things hurt lasts you the rest of your life. You traded away the memories in order to keep everything they taught you. Now that question from earlier, are those years truly gone or just out of reach? The honest answer is that no one is fully certain, and the more carefully scientists look, the less it seems like simple deletion. There are signs that traces of those experiences linger inside you, shaping who you are in ways you can never consciously access. The fears you cannot explain, the strange comfort of a smell you cannot place, the deep, wordless certainty that a certain kind of touch means you are safe. You do not remember being held as an infant, but the part of you that knows, without thinking, what being held feels like, was built in exactly those forgotten months. The memory left, the shape it pressed into you stayed, which means the blank stretch at the start of your life is not empty at all. It is foundational. It is the one part of you that you cannot see, precisely because you are standing on top of it. So think one more time about that photograph. The baby with frosting on its face, the one you cannot remember being. You probably grew up believing that child was lost to you, sealed off behind a wall of forgetting, a small stranger wearing your name. That is not what happened. That child is not gone. That child became the structure. Its forgotten days are the bedrock that every later memory was quietly built on top of. You do not remember being that baby for the same reason a house does not remember being a foundation. The foundation did not vanish. You are simply living inside what was built on top of it. You have seen a photograph of yourself that you do not remember. Now you know why. Not because that version of you vanished, but because it gave up its own memories, one overwritten neuron at a time, so that the you reading this right now could exist at all to forget them.